This is Story Recapped. Today, I'm going to explain a comedy, drama, and fantasy film called The Man Without Gravity. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care. On a stormy night, Alina drives her pregnant daughter, Natalia, to the hospital. Alina stays by her side as Natalia goes into labor. Once the baby is born, he floats in midair. Natalia pulls her baby into her arms, in awe that her son is an angel. Alina, however, isn't as happy. Alina hurries her daughter and grandson back home, wary of anyone seeing them. Once the doors are closed, Alina presses her daughter to reveal who the baby's father is, but Natalia claims that she doesn't know. Frustrated, Alina forbids the baby from going outside. In the morning, Alina wakes up and finds the baby on the ceiling. They carefully bring him down without waking him. Natalia names her son Oscar, while her mother still believes that the baby's condition is a punishment for Natalia sleeping with men that she didn't know. Still, Natalia grows fond of her son, believing that he's an angel sent by her father. Alina, however, is more concerned about the gossiping neighbors who wish to see the baby. The neighbors arrive at their door, and Alina feigns a smile as she greets them. The women gawk over the baby, but Alina forbids them from touching him, claiming that he was born frail. Finally, the women leave, and Natalia is glad that strapping her father's belt on the baby worked. Soon, the mother and daughter make changes around the house to accommodate the flying child. When the neighbors wonder why they haven't seen the baby outside, Alina claims that he's allergic to the sun. Years go by and Oscar has grown into a young child. Natalia makes a jacket for him with weights on the pockets to keep him on the ground. Natalia insists that the jacket will allow Oscar to go to school. However, Alina still refuses to let him go outside. Natalia, however, doesn't want Oscar to grow up ignorant, so Alina decides to homeschool the child. While watching cartoons, Oscar wonders why Batman, who can fly, can also go outside when he can't. One day, Oscar pretends that his neighbors are supervillains. He opens the window and climbs out, just as Alina and Natalia arrive. The two hear a crash, so they follow the sound and see that the window is open. Fearing that Oscar has flown into the sky, Alina checks outside, but they find Oscar sitting on his upside-down couch. Because of this, Alina nails the window shut, but Natalia pleads for her mother to understand her son's need to be a child. Alina insists that Oscar will never be safe outside. Tired of her mother's negativity, Natalia asserts that she is the mother, and therefore decides for him. She then takes her son outside despite Alina's protests. On a foggy night, Oscar sees the world outside for the first time. Natalia asks Oscar not to talk to anyone and keep his abilities a secret. Over the next few days, Oscar spends more time outside with his mother, surprising the neighbors who believe that he couldn't be outside. While waiting for his mother at the store, Oscar accidentally bumps into a little girl. The girl asserts that he has to help her carry the water bottle since he knocked her down, leaving Oscar no choice but to follow her. The girl introduces herself as Agatha and claims that her mother flew away into heaven to be an angel, surprising Oscar. Agatha asks about Oscar's father, but he claims that he doesn't have one. She insists that everyone has one, and that he shouldn't lie since liars go to the devil. When they come across a group of students, Oscar is stunned by a Batman backpack, but Agatha thinks it looks expensive. Then, Agatha looks at a television from a store and mentions how she wants to be as beautiful as the singer on the show. Tired of walking while carrying the water bottles, Oscar drops 2 weights from his pocket. When Agatha takes the water from him, Oscar floats to the roof. Agatha is in awe, thinking that he's Superman. To help him get down, Agatha gives him her heavy pink bag and promises that she'll never tell anyone about Oscar's powers. That evening, Natalia paces worriedly around the house. Finally, Oscar arrives home carrying Agatha's bag. Natalia scolds her son, but he tells her about Agatha, his new friend. Suddenly, Alina arrives, having found the weights that Oscar discarded on the streets. Natalia assures her mother that Oscar just got lost for a while, and lies that Natalia got him the pink bag since he liked it. Over the next few days, Agatha and Oscar become friends and even play together in his house. On Halloween, Agatha and her grandmother, Rose, pick up Oscar for trick-or-treating. When the 2 children run off, Rose commends Natalia for having such a sweet boy. She then mentions that Agatha claims that Oscar can fly like Superman. Rose thinks that Agatha just imagines this, but hearing this scares Natalia. The next day, Agatha comes to visit Oscar, but Natalia refuses to let her in. She keeps Agatha away from Oscar and scolds her son for telling the girl his secret. Oscar insists that they'll go to hell for lying, and Natalia slaps him for it. Oscar waves to Agatha from the window before she walks away, heartbroken. One day, Rose brings Agatha to their home, asking why the girl won't stop crying after visiting Oscar. Natalia lies that Oscar is busy, so the two leave. Rose assures Agatha that Oscar isn't mad at her and is just busy studying. Agatha, however, reveals that Oscar doesn't go to school. When Alina arrives, she finds officers at their home. The officers question them why Oscar doesn't attend school. Alina insists that Oscar is too ill, but the officer insists they need a medical certificate to excuse him from attending. Natalia excuses that she's been too busy to take the boy to the hospital, while Alina is too old and weak to do it herself. She promises that they'll take care of things soon, and the officer stresses that Oscar should be attending school when they visit again. Left with no choice, Natalia takes Oscar to school the following day. However, she hesitates and brings him back to the car. Alina promises Oscar that he'll go to school next year, but the boy knows that they'll never let him attend school. After a few days, an officer knocks on their door, but no one answers. Years later, Natalia answers the door and lets in Oscar, who's now a grown man. Alina's passed away long ago. The mother and son now live alone in a cottage in the mountains, but Oscar still uses Agata's bag to keep him on the ground. One day, Oscar goes to a pub where his mother works. The bartender, Martina, serves him a drink. Oscar's friend, Andrea, teases him about having a crush on Martina, which he profusely denies. Natalia gets ready to leave, but Andrea continues to tease Oscar and Martina. Natalia suggests that the two go to a nearby fair, but Oscar insists on walking his mother home. At home, Natalia tries to convince Oscar to go to the fair, but he isn't as enthusiastic. Oscar comments that he would have fun if he didn't need the pink bag. The next day, Oscar teaches Andrea how to read. Andrea gives up on reading, but Oscar encourages him to read interesting books. The man urges Oscar to drink with him, but complains about the pink bag. Still, they go to a pub and watch a sports game. The TV loses signal just before the game ends, so Andrea tells Oscar to fetch the ladder to repair the antenna. Oscar suggests flying there, making Natalia nervous. But he turns to Andrea and laughs, making them think that he's joking. Later that night, Oscar teases his mother about their friends finding out about him. Natalia discourages him from thinking about such things, stressing that the world wouldn't be as optimistic about him. At home, Oscar watches a show called Extraordinary Men, encouraging people who have unique talents to join the contest. Inspired to join, Oscar jots down the show's phone number. In the dead of night, Oscar writes a note for his mother and leaves. On an episode for Extraordinary Men, Oscar is called onto the stage as the next contestant. Back in the cottage, Andrea calls Natalia to inform her that Oscar is on TV. In his hotel room, Oscar prepares his bag as the episode where he flew on the show plays on television. The phone rings, and a man invites him to have breakfast, informing him that he's already paid for Oscar's room for another night. In the lobby, Oscar meets David. The two men walk together as David discusses Oscar's future. David warns Oscar that the world is full of criminals, and he offers to look after the young man for 10% of his talent fee. Confused, yet curious by the possibilities, Oscar nods. David suggests giving Oscar a stage name, and they agree on The Man Without Gravity. Back at the hotel, Oscar wonders if someone will write a book about him someday. David promises him that everything is possible. Then, David presents Oscar with a contract. Oscar hesitates, so David motions to leave. This makes Oscar panic, so he agrees to sign the contract without thoroughly reading it. The next day, David takes Oscar to a sophisticated, modern house and reveals that it will be Oscar's new home. Oscar wonders if his mother could live with him, but David discourages this, since many girls will want his attention. Oscar becomes a celebrity, with sold-out shows and product endorsement deals. Oscar calls Natalia to discuss his success, but his mother doesn't share his enthusiasm, much to his disappointment. One evening, while in a club with beautiful women, Natalia calls his phone, but he ignores her. Oscar does more photo shoots, where he poses as he's flying. A man walks in with a pink pony in tow during a photo shoot, making Oscar uncomfortable. That evening, Oscar prepares a speech that he wants to say on stage. However, David crumples the speech that he wrote, reminding him that the show will be televised worldwide. On stage, Oscar walks on a plank and drops. A loud thud alarms the audience, but he eventually floats back to the spotlight. Oscar ruminates about his situation at home, realizing that he's unhappy despite his fame. He calls Natalia but hangs up the phone when she picks up. On TV, Natalia watches a documentary that features her hometown where they've built a museum in Oscar's name. The museum is full of items they claim belonged to Oscar during his childhood. Oscar views the same documentary that calls his mother possessive. David enters presenting a copy of Time magazine where Oscar is on the cover. However, Oscar is more concerned about the documentary slandering his mother. David argues that it's all for show. The young man is finally tired of his fame, bored of performing the same tricks on stage, so David encourages him to leave show business, but only after making more money. Oscar reminds him that he wants someone to write a book about him, and David already has a plan in mind. The following evening, David introduces Oscar to Lucas and Piero. Lucas pitches printing 1 million books about Oscar within 3 months. Hearing this, Oscar pulls out his notes and talks about how he wants the book to be made. Lucas hands the notes to Piero, who will be writing the book under Oscar's name. Oscar is confused, so Piero states how they intended to write the book, portraying Oscar as a child hero who struggled in poverty. Lucas stresses that it will be better for the book to have these changes, but Oscar refuses to lie about his life. To change the topic, Lucas presents Oscar with the draft for the book cover, showing Oscar with the pink bag. Oscar gets even more frustrated, so he walks out. David chases after him and tells him that people wouldn't want to read a book about his inner thoughts. Insulted, Oscar leaves. One evening, Natalia visits Oscar's house during a party. She searches for her son amongst the dancing drunk people. David spots her and calls Oscar, announcing that he invited his mother to the city. In a private room, Oscar shamefully apologizes to his mother for not contacting her earlier. Natalia dismisses his worries and hands him the notes from his room, where he wrote inspiring quotes from famous writers, reminding Oscar about how he used to view the world. For a Christmas show, Oscar is wheeled on stage wearing an angel costume. His mother sits in the audience. Finally, Oscar's feet are unhooked, and he floats in the air, and the crowd cheers. Frustrated, Oscar yells at the audience that he's not an angel, and insults them openly. At Oscar's home, David tries to plan for damage control, but Oscar wants to quit. David stresses that they've already signed contracts, but Oscar promises to pay for the penalties himself. Then, David argues that people will not leave him alone, so Oscar tells him to fake his death. Days later, the news reports about Oscar's death and the rumors that his ability was nothing more than special effects. Still, journalists keep knocking on Natalia's door to ask her about her son. Eventually, no one answers the door, as Natalia has passed away. Years later, Oscar grows a beard and uses a wheelchair to disguise himself. He arranges his groceries in his simple apartment and straps himself to the wheelchair to keep himself from flying. Then, he goes to the front desk, working as the attendant at a hotel often used by courtesans while they're working. One of the hotel residents, Lucy, asks his opinion on the Christmas card that she wrote for her son. After assuring her that it's beautiful, Lucy asks him what he wants as a present. She offers to get him some company, but he refuses. Suddenly, Mimi, a posh-looking woman, walks by, and Lucy rolls her eyes at her snobbish attitude. When Lucy leaves, Oscar reads the paper and learns that David has been arrested for fraud. After picking up some groceries, Oscar heads back to the hotel and is surprised by the courtesans, who give him presents for the holidays. Later that night, all the ladies have left for the holidays, except for one. Oscar takes his backpack and walks upstairs to check on Mimi, who assures him that she's fine. Spotting his pink bag, Mimi follows him, then calls him Oscar. To his surprise, she reveals that she's Agatha. The next day, Agatha and Oscar catch up. When Agatha asks if he's fallen in love before, Oscar describes a small girl who wanted a pair of earrings. Realizing who he meant, Agatha gets up, and Oscar follows. At his apartment, Oscar plays a video of the singer that Agatha liked as a kid. Oscar starts floating as the two dance to the song. When Oscar compliments her, Agatha suddenly asks if he's disappointed upon finding her in the hotel. That evening, Agatha returns to the building with a client. While Oscar is cleaning up, Agatha calls the front desk and asks him to come to her room. There, Agatha is saddened by her state, but Oscar assures her that she's beautiful. The next day, Oscar and Agatha spend the day running around, watching a movie, and dancing in his apartment. The two find comfort in each other's company, clinging to the simpler, happier days they spent as kids. One day, Oscar heads to the bank to transfer money to save David. Later, Agatha gives Oscar a new backpack while he gives her an agate ring, the gem that she was named after. Later, the two spend the night in bed. The next night, Oscar greets Agatha with a rose, but she casually ignores it since she's with a client. In her room, her client laughs at Oscar's attempt to woo her. Insulted, Agatha tells him to leave. She then confronts Oscar, yelling about how miserable their situation is. Agatha hopes to leave the life of poverty, but she can't do it with Oscar's new identity. Seeing him hurt, Agatha tries to apologize, but he walks away, heartbroken over her words. He heads back to his childhood town, where his museum has long been closed, and his statue is abandoned. With no one around, Oscar enters his childhood home and looks back on the warnings his mother and grandmother told him about the world. Suddenly, Agatha knocks on the door and gives him back the pink backpack she gave him long ago. Eventually, Agatha and Oscar restore his childhood home. Agatha is now pregnant with Oscar's child, while Oscar works as a window cleaner, using his powers while in a Batman costume. A room of elderlies watches him in amazement and laugh when one old man asks Batman to take him away. Though it's not the superhero life that he dreamed of, Oscar is happy to be Batman for a few people.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this. Turn on notifications. And leave a like, it really helps the channel out. Thank you for watching.